Hello everyone. Okay, we're gonna see how this work. This is my first lesson that I'm gonna be recording, and it's gonna be for Monday. But if you can actually start as soon as possible, that will be great. Well, the topic is supposed to be completing the square, and everybody knows what a perfect square trinomial is. Did you know it was also something for you to remember how to write perfect squares? And if you notice, to be a perfect square, the last term must be positive, always positive. So remember what I said to you before. You keep the variable of the first term, you keep the sign, and you divide that number by 2. In this case, 14. 14 divided by 2 is 7, and you can just put it at x plus 7 and square it. That's a perfect square trinomial. We also have another one when the last term is positive 81. Remember, always positive. So you always keep the first term, right? And keep the minus in this case. And half of 18 is 9. And just put it as a binomial square. That's a perfect square trinomial. Now, in question number C, they're asking you for the value of C. Remember, it's always a combination between B and C. So if half of 8 is 4, that means that 4 times 4 should be 16. That's what the value of C is, 16. So remember, divide B by 2, and if you multiply that, that will give you the value of C. So now we're going to go into the topic. We're supposed to be completing the square. Okay, completing the square is the only method when you don't have to have the equation in standard form. Okay, that means that you have to move the constant to the other side. And as you can see here, what I did first is I did minus 2 in both sides because they're both family, all right? And when I did that, I keep the x squared plus 2x, and when I do 10 minus 2, I get 8. Now remember, the value of b is always the middle term. So the value of b here is 2. So you have to add the value of b into both sides of the equations, okay? Constant has to be on the right side of the equation. I put it right there for you, okay? Now, the formula says to add b divided by 2 squared in both sides. So the value of b here is positive 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 1 squared is 1. So what I did is I add, okay, let me just fold this up because I think you're not seeing what I'm doing, okay? So what I'm doing now is, hold on, bear with me. So what I'm doing now is I'm adding 1 to both sides, okay? So for my original equation, I add 1 here and 1 over there. So that becomes a perfect square trinomial. Remember, you keep the x, you keep the plus, and half of 2 is 1, okay? And 1 times 1 is 1. So you rewrite that as a perfect square trinomial, and since you add 8 plus 1 on the other side, that becomes 9. Okay, this one I did after I did the addition. Remember, when you have something to the second power, you do square root in both sides, all right? And when you do that, that gives the exponent. So you will have left x plus 1 equals plus minus radical 3, okay? Now, when I get that, I will do minus 1 in both sides. And I'm going to continue here because I have enough space. You know me. So that becomes, I will write it separate. I will write x equals the positive root of 3 minus 1, and x, the negative root of 3, which is negative 3 minus 1. And my roots will be 2 and negative 4. So that will be my answer. Okay, 2 with negative 4. Now, I'm going to do problem number B, which is the same thing. I'm going to just move my constant to the right side, and because it's negative, I may make it positive, and plus 31, and I have left x squared minus 2x equals 31. Now remember, I leave that space, so you know that you have to add the value of b when you get that. So, well, it's not the value of b, will be the new value of c, but anyway, you use the formula, and whatever you get from that formula, you're going to add it on both sides of the equation. So b here is negative 2. You can see here, this is b. So negative 2 divided by 2 gives me negative 1, and negative 1 squared is positive 1. So what I do is I add, let me just put b here so you know where that come from too before. So now what I'm doing is adding that value in both sides. So I do plus 1 here, plus 1 there, and when I add up, that becomes 32. Now, in this side of the equation, I'll have x minus 1 squared. Remember, to kill the exponents, I have to do the radicals in both sides. So I do radical here and radical there, and that kills my exponent. So I have left x minus 1 equals plus minus radical 32, all right? So now, remember, that 1, because it's positive, I gotta do plus 1 in both sides. So I have to write it separate. Here comes my arrow, okay? So what you do is you write it as x equals positive 1 plus minus radical 32. Now, if they don't ask you to do it in standard, in simplest radical form, that should be your answer. But if they ask you to write it in a radical simple form, then you have to simplify the radical. And you know that the largest perfect square that divides 32 is 16. 16 is the perfect square, which is 4, not radical 4. And when I simplify that, I write my answer in simple radical form, which is going to be 1 plus, I forgot the 4 here. So that's supposed to be 4 radical 2. My bad. I forgot the 4 before. So that should be the answer for that. Now let's do problem number 3. Problem number 3, you have family and the leading coefficient is not 1. As you can see here, in this one, we have 2 as the leading coefficient and we have like terms. So it doesn't matter what you do first. You can divide by the GCF first and solve after. Okay, you can just combine line term first and divide by the GCF after. I decided to do minus 20. I combine line terms, right? Minus 20, and I'll get 14 when I do that. And from here, obviously, I bring whatever I have left. Now, after that, when I do that, I'm going to divide by the GCF, which is 2. So when I divide everything by 2, I get x squared plus 6x equals 7 because when I divide by 2, 14 divided by 2 is 7. You divide everything by 2, all right? So now that's my A, that's my B, that's my C. So I'm going to use the formula. I have to add B, all right? Add B in both sides of the equation. So B here is actually, this is B, okay guys? Not 6. Now, that becomes 6 divided by 2 squared, which is 6 divided by 2 is 3. And 3 to the second power is 9. So 9 must be added to both sides of the equation, which is what I did here. Plus 9, okay, that's my 6x. And I'll have a perfect square trinomial. Keep my x, keep my plus sign, half for 6 is 3. I'm going to square that one, all right, and I'm going to add 7 plus 6 is 16. After that, I will do my radical 16, right? And when I square root both sides, I will have left x plus 3 equals plus minus 4. Then I do minus 3, and because there's 2 different roots, I'm going to do separate. So x equals the positive 4 minus 3, which gives me 1. And the other x should be negative 4 minus 7, which is equals negative 7, and that should be my answer for that. Sorry, but you know what? I'm trying to do as much as I can, to send you the answer key. Now, let me just actually do the ones on the back because I don't know if I'm going to have enough memory, but anyway, this is the same thing. You never want the leading coefficient to be negative, all right? I wrote it here. You don't want the leading coefficient to be negative. So what I did is I divide by negative 1, all right? That's the GCF, and of course everything changed signs. Then I move to the negative, I move the negative 2 to the right hand side. You should become familiar with this right now. And of course, like when I do that, I have x squared minus 8x equals 2. Then, same thing, add b divided by 2 squared on both sides. When I do that, my b here is negative 8. So negative 8 divided by 2, that becomes positive negative 4. Negative 4 squared is 16. So this is my 16. That means that I have to add 16 in both sides of the equation, okay? So that's 0, right? It's not 16. So when I do that, I add my plus 16 here and my plus 16 here, and I get a perfect square trinomial here, which is x minus 4, right, squared equals 18, because when I add 2 plus 16, I get 18. Now, after that, you know what the deal is. Keep the x, keep the middle among the sign, which is negative. Half of 8 is 4, and you just like square it. After that, you know, you're going to do square root in both sides to kill the exponent, and you have x minus 4 equals plus minus radical 18, all right? And you do plus 4, right? And you will get x equal 4 plus minus radical 18. Remember, that answer is correct, unless if they ask you to simplify or simplify radical form. If that's the case, you know how to do that. The larger perfect square that divide 18 is 9, okay? So 9 is a perfect square, which is 3. So 3 radical 2 becomes radical 18. What you do now, you're just going to keep the 4 plus minus whatever you get from here, which is 3 radical 2, and that should be your answer. Now, the next ones, as you can see, they're asking us to round to the nearest tenth. So that means that when we get to this point right here, we have to separate the roots, okay, and just put them in the calculators and get our answer as decimal. 1/10, the tenth means one place after the decimal point. So, no, same process, minus 14, you got that left, all right? Add b over 2 squared, which is 9, and I guess you should be able to do this following what I did before. Now, when you get to the point here, when you have to, whether that's a decimal, the first thing you should do is separate them, all right? I'm going to use 3, the part, okay, which I'm adding 3 in both sides, because remember, this is minus. I have to do plus in both sides. And when I do that, I will have x equals positive 3 plus minus radical 7. So now I'm going to use my positive root and my negative root. So the 3 is always going to be positive, because remember, for negative becomes positive. So I will write 3 plus my positive root, which is radical 7, and I put that on the calculator, and I get 5.6. Then I do 3 minus the negative root, all right? And that will give me 0.4. So that should be the answer for that. Now, the other one is the same thing. The only thing is now that the leading coefficient is negative and it has a number. Luckily here, the GCF is negative 16. So if I divide everything by negative 16, I will have that left. X squared minus 2x minus 1 equals 0. Then you move the negative 1 to the other side, and you're going to add b over 2 squared in both sides, and you know that, and I will get positive 1. So you add 1 in both sides, okay? Positive 1 is right here if you didn't see it. You add that in both sides, you know the rule, okay? 1 plus 1, this is C, that's B, that's A. And if you do that, you're going to have a perfect square trinomial, which is x squared minus 1. You know you divide that by 2, that's 1. You keep the x, bring down the sign, square it, and add. 1 plus 1 is 2. Then you do the radical to kill the exponent, right? And that becomes x minus 1 equals plus minus radical 2, plus 1, and it's basically exactly what we did in the previous problem. Now you gotta separate them because we rounded to the nearest tenth, right? So when you separate that, you will have 1 added to the positive 2 root, radical 2, and 1 minus radical 2. Put it in the calculator, and that should be your answer right here. So with the homework, you can use this format, or also you can take a look at the reference sheet that I'm going to add to it, all right? And if you have a question, just text me, and answer back as soon as possible, okay? Hopefully this went well. I'm going to see if I can master this down the road and make it a little easier, but I think for now that's how we're going to work, okay? So the reference sheet is going to be attached to the, as an attachment, so did the homework, all right? Any question, call me. Thank you, and be safe, wash your hands, and stay away from people. Have a good day.